Hello everyone and welcome back to Millicraft. In today's episode, we're going to be going over all of the wood types, the tree types, and how to grow them. Let's get started. In survival Minecraft, there are 10 different overworld wood types now and 2 nether ones. We don't have any end wood types yet, maybe someday in the future, but as of 1.21.6, we have 12 full different wood types. And if you're scared of the nether, you've got these. You've got 10 different wood types to choose from. Lots of cool designs, and you can find these all over the place in your survival world. But let's go over specifically where you need to go and how you need to be able to grow these different types of wood. Our very first wood type is probably the first tree you're going to punch. And now, depending on what biome you spawn in, you might see some of these other trees as we go, but oak trees are usually the first ones that you're going to see. Oak has a very nice neutral color palette. It has a very variegated wood on its bark, has a very nice smooth wood type, very neutral, very brown, just plain old oak. Oak trees can grow in various sizes and shapes. So let's take a look at how to grow the different kinds of oak trees. Now we're stepping out of the gray box on this one and into our flat world. Let's take a look at a couple different oak tree types. Now, oak tree saplings can be planted anywhere, on podzol, on green grass, on dirt, on a few other blocks as well, not on gravel or sand, but quite a few different, anything that's green, it can grow on. And if we bone meal it a little bit, you have your standard size oak tree. Now, there are some tricks to growing larger oak trees, because in the wild you might see this variety, you might see some shorter ones, and then once in a while you'll see the really, really tall ones. Now, there's a couple of different tricks to growing a really big oak tree. Well, part of it could be based on luck, and a few that I've seen over the years have tricks like this. So if we take a 2-block tall dirt, and then we kind of build it up and around just like this, and then leave a little hole in the middle, then bone meal it. Sometimes it's going to take a while, and sometimes it's not going to work. Well, there's another option of a different type of oak tree right there. Let's try another trick that I have seen done, and this is to build a 5-high dirt pillar with torches running along it. And let's see if this will let us grow a very tall oak tree. There we go. There is a couple of different tricks to grow a very tall oak tree, and I'm determined. This is one of my favorite ways to do oak trees. And I know it works. Just sometimes they're a little more persnickety than others. There we go. Ooh, that one's a really big one. And then you just have to take the dirt off of it. And that will give you a few different oak tree types. Now, the next tree that you might see, you're going to probably see these just about as much as you're going to see the oak trees, and that is birch. Birch has a rather distinct bark color. It's not used a whole lot except for in maybe some Christmassy builds, maybe some texturing. It's a very pink block. If you kind of look, it has like little bits of pink, and it has these very distinct black splotches. So not a lot of people like it. I will say a lot of people don't like the birch tree, but look at the texture of the stripped bark and the regular logs. These are they have a little bit more of a creamy color. They have a little bit more of a pinkish tinge. It goes really well with cherry wood. It has a very nice paper screen door. Let's go take a look at the standard birch tree type that you can grow. Now, just like the oak tree, you can plant down a birch sapling and grow it with bone meal, and you're going to get a medium-sized tree. Now, there are a couple larger-sized birch trees, but most of the time, you're going to get pretty much the same thing if you grow it. There are larger trees out in the world that you can find in those old growth. Oh, there's a little bit taller. That's about as high of a birch tree as you're going to get unless you go to an old growth birch forest. And they're not going to grow much bigger if you replace them. But keep that in mind. If you want a large birch tree, you're probably going to have to build it yourself. Otherwise, you can build in an old growth birch forest. And with any of these trees, you can honestly just plant the sapling down and let it go on its own. You only need a bone meal if you're speeding up the process. But almost all the trees, except for the nether trees, will grow by themselves. On to the next and most famous of all of the Minecraft trees, the spruce sapling. Now, in the wild, you'll find spruce taigas, you'll find pine taigas. They're exactly the same tree type. The sapling type is exactly the same, but you're going to find larger stumps and larger trunks depending on where you go. Like the pine is probably going to be a little bit taller, the spruce is going to be a little bit more leafy, but you're going to find pods all growing around them, and you're going to have a lot of these little pine trees in regular taigas, and these can be found in like the cold, snowy taigas as well as the regular taigas. And a lot of people really love this old-fashioned kind of bolted door and trapdoor look because you can use them for so many different things. Now, with spruce trees, we have a couple of options for growing our spruce trees. We can grow a single one, so you can plant down one spruce sapling, or you can actually do a 4-pack, so 2 and 2, and grow them this way. Now, keep in mind, when you do it this way, you're going to get a very, very large tree, and it is going to spread podzol all around the area, just like this. So keep in mind when you're planting one of these and you have the 4, the larger the tree is, the more of this podzol is. If you don't want the podzol to spread, you might want to actually elevate the platform you're growing the tree on so that the podzol only spreads on the little platform that you use. And you can grow these on podzol, of course, and you can grow them on grass, any other different type of leafy green kind of thing you can grow these on. And let's see if we can find one more of these. So you can see that depending on the tree, the spruce tree, sometimes you'll get leaves that come all the way to the bottom. Sometimes you'll only have a little tiny tuft of green at the very top, but they're all going to be 2 by 2, so they're going to have a 4 chunk, unlike the singles. And they're going to be very quick, and they're going to give you a lot of different wood all in one massive tree. Our 4th easiest tree type to find is the acacia sapling. They're found in savannas and in savanna plateaus. They have a very unique outside texture. Now, most of these have a very similar inside. Birch is a little different, but it is a lighter wood. And these are like darker woods, but then you get acacia and you have this really cool gray outside, and then you have a very warm rusty orange inside, and you have a very open door, which fits the savanna because you might not need a very stuffy door. You want to have a lot of airflow going through your build. And these are really great for if you want to be able to see out of a door with making sure there's not a creeper out there. They can't see you, but you can see them. Now, acacia trees pretty much grow, they have a whole bunch of different types, but they pretty much just grow like this. You can put a whole bunch of them together. And birch trees and oak trees and spruce trees, you can do that too, where you can plant a whole bunch of saplings all together, and they'll eventually grow up all by themselves in one big behemoth of a tree. And then you can cut them all down all at the same time. So you can kind of do it like this, and it is going to grow and replace, some of the wood. But if you need a whole lot of wood in a pinch, you can just put a whole bunch of saplings together for many of these trees and get a lot of wood to chop down all at once. On our next wood type, we're doing a little bit more exotic woods now. We're going into the jungle, and maybe you spawned in the jungle region. Jungle wood has a very green and pink texture to its bark. And if you notice, unlike most of these barks where they have a vertical pattern on them, except for birch, obviously it has more of a horizontal, the jungle also has a very horizontal kind of orientation, and you can change that by setting the bark along its side. So if you press it up against another wood type, just like that, you get this vertical orientation instead of a horizontal one. And you might be able to use that on some of your projects. It also has a nice open circular window on both the door and the trapdoor, which you can use for various purposes. Obviously, if you want to have some way of being able to look outside, much like the oak door, but unlike the birch and the spruce door, you have a little bit of an opening that you can look through. So growing a jungle tree is going to be a lot like growing a spruce tree, where you can put one single one down, just like that, or you can build 4 together and get a really massive jungle tree. And what's really cool about these massive jungle trees is they're always going to come up with vines. So if you have not had any vines in your world, or you forgot to bring some back when you went to the jungle, you can get them from the jungle tree. As a bonus, they won't grow cocoa beans naturally, but you could use one of these big behemoths to grow your cocoa beans in a pinch. Next up is my favorite wood, and that is the dark oak. It has a very nice, rich, chocolatey color, and a lot of people say that the trapdoors look very chocolate bar-ish as well. If you put a whole bunch of them together, they look like a Hershey's chocolate bar. Not sponsored. The doors are very rich, and they're very nice for like a mansion build or something along those lines where you have like the really dark oak doors. However, you can't see through them, so keep that in mind. There is no opening in these doors. Now, the dark oak is our first tree that very specifically you always have to grow it in 4s. You cannot have any other combination. It cannot grow by itself, which in a decorative sense, having one of these little tree saplings around, used to be our old bushes. Honestly, we used to have our old bushes before bushes became a thing in Minecraft. And if you want to just have them spread out through your landscaping, that is great too. But if you want a big oak tree, you're going to have to plant them as a 2x2, so 4 together, in order to get the massive dark oak tree. This is one of only 2 different trees that have to have 4, and we'll go over the other one here shortly. Our next tree type is the mangrove, and you get a mangrove propagule off of the tree, and they will drop these propagules. What's interesting about the mangrove is they can grow in water, so I will show you how to do that here in a second, but you can also have them growing on land. Another one of the tree types that have a very distinctly different bark color than they do the interior. And this bark color can come in handy for a lot of mixing of colors. It blends really well with some of our other wood types on the outside. You can also use this in other ways too, to kind of distinctly give like a very bordered red tile on the floor. Now, this is the first one of the door and trapdoor types that are very distinctly different from one another. Now, it has a little bit of that arch look at the top of this door, but there's no opening in the door itself. It is a solid door, but the trapdoors you can see through, and it has a very round texture in the middle here. All right, like I mentioned just a few moments ago, a mangrove is grown by a propagule. A propagule can be found on a grown mangrove tree, like this. as you can see, the mangroves actually do grow the vines naturally, just like the jungle tree. You can also see these little flowery things that are propagules. Now they're going to come in different heights and depths. So like here's a baby propagule. It's not ready to harvest yet. Here is a fully adult propagule. It's going to be the length of a block. A middle tier one, if you bone meal it, will get large enough, and we can actually bone meal that too to see. There's like the baby one, there's a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, and then a full grown propagule is going to have like this little darker brown bit at the bottom. When you harvest the tree, it is a little bit of a pain in the tuchus. I always like to do it from top down typically, but you can kind of go up from the bottom. You will have to pull out these roots. Now you can grow a whole bunch of these propagules all together, but a lot of people just, it's kind of a pain because the tree type itself, when you kind of go up in here, you can see that you'll have the main stem and then it's going to branch out and give you different wood all the way through. So sometimes you're going to have to kind of come all the way over into the tree itself to find where all the branches of that tree is. Another thing that spawns on these are moss carpets, which are handy. So if you're wanting to do some hidden landscaping, moss carpets will grow on these and you can harvest them straight from here. The mangrove roots can be used in mud-logged mangrove roots. They can go down in water. You can waterlog them for builds, and you can use them for all sorts of landscaping and building ideas. Now, like I mentioned a minute ago, this is one of the only trees that you can actually grow inside of water. And you can actually put one right down in the water, and it will grow just like a... I'm trapped. It'll grow right out of the water just like that mangrove tree. And it will do it without the bone mealing either. And you can have yourself a little mangrove forest. Now, one thing to keep in mind about the mangroves is you are going to have to go to a mangrove swamp. And they're usually found in warmer biomes. And they're usually around maybe a desert or another swamp biome. They will only grow there. Now, you can buy the propagules off of a wandering trader from time to time. So if you're having a real hard time finding a mangrove swamp, you might want to check the wandering trader for such. Another thing, just like the mangrove, and I forgot to mention this, is the dark oak will only spawn in the dark oak forest. So you will have to find a dark oak forest where the very large mushrooms grow. Or you might be able to buy a 4-pack off of Wandering Trader as well. So just keep that in mind as you're searching your world to make sure you're bringing back some of these little saplings. Otherwise, you might miss out and have to go back if you want any of these wood types later. Our next tree type is on a mountainside in what's called a cherry grove, and that is the cherry tree. Cherry trees have a very deep, dark, purpley kind of bark. Again, it's another horizontal running tree bark, just like these guys are. But inside is the bright pink, flowery looking wood type of the cherry. Now, different kind of wood type. This is another one that has open see-through holes in both the trapdoor and the door. A little bit of a different texture between the two of them. This one has the little cross-shaped, maybe more of a flowery pattern, and this is more of a distinct grid. Now, cherry trees, when they grow, are very, very prolific. They love to spread. They love to be huge. And they love to have multiple branches up into the tree. They will drop an absolute ton of cherry saplings and lots of sticks. And as you notice, they have a very distinctive leaf texture as the petals fall down to the ground. Cherry trees were actually our very first falling petal leaf type. Unlike all of the other trees you see here, with this very distinct like oak tree shaped leaf. Even the pine trees have that very distinct leaf type. I'm hoping they'll fix that at some point because they should have pine needles dropping off of them, and they do not have pine needles. They have little oak tree leaves falling off of them. But cherry trees were first. Cherry trees were the ones that we first got these awesome pinky petals. Now you might notice that they also have a very distinct angle that they fall, and it is not based on wind because we don't have wind in Minecraft. But if we turn this direction, because we see the petals are going that direction, if we F3 it, they're flowing east. So just like in real life, when you have a westerly wind blowing petals east, if you plan it out just right and plant your trees in such a way, you can get a specific wind look for your build. So keep that in mind when you're planting cherry trees, if it matters all that much to you, but they do tend to flow that way. And when you're planting them on like a hill, they'll actually flow down the hill a little bit as well. Our next tree type, which is a fairly new tree type, is the pale oak sapling. Pale oak was introduced in the Garden Awakens update, and it has a very cool, crackly, old-looking gray texture to it. It also has a very beautiful white interior and beautiful white trapdoors and doors. Another textured door that does not have any openings, but it has a very cool-looking, old-fashioned style. Has a very big, like, iron door look to it, which is really cool. Just like the dark oak tree, you cannot grow a pale oak by itself. It cannot grow one single sapling. You do have to put a pack of 4, a 2x2, in order to grow the dark oak trees. And look at the beautiful silvery leaf. Just like the pink cherry tree over there, it has a very distinct leaf look to it. And this is going to look gray no matter what biome you put it in. It's always going to have this really pretty silvery look to it. Now, in a pale oak biome, you will run across something that is very unique. And that is the creaking heart. The creaking heart will look like a very old kind of ratty looking block. Now keep in mind, those will spawn creakings, but you will not find that in a tree like this. Nope, that is for the wild oaks that grow in the pale forest. So in order to find the creaking hearts, you're either going to have to spawn a creaking and damage it and make some resin and take the heart home with you, or you're going to have to find it in one of the trees. Anytime you take a sapling back with you, it's going to just grow a normal pale oak tree without any creaking hearts. Our last overworld wood type, I can't even call it necessarily a tree, but it's bamboo. Bamboo has a very pretty green texture. 9 pieces of bamboo will stack into one of these blocks. And then you can actually strip them into the more yellow block. You can also create these blocks into planks, and you can also make them into these really cool mosaic planks as well, which has a really cool tile look on the floor. Bamboo also has a very cool door type and trapdoor type. One of my favorites. I wish it wasn't so yellow, but it has a lot of air. It has a lot of flow. It looks really good in a lot of different jungly or summery builds. Now, I can't really say that bamboo is a tree. I mean, it grows very, very tall, very, very fast. And you can chop it down very, very easy. You can put a whole bunch of them down, and they will grow at all sorts of different tick speeds. As you can kind of see that they don't all grow in the middle of the block. So that one's kind of over to the edge. This one's more centered slightly. This one's way over in the corner, etc. What is kind of neat is there are different tricks that you can use with these bamboo. I've seen some people do like this with making it look a little bit like a cattail. I've seen people put string on the top of them so that they stop growing and you get the varying heights lower. So there are a few things you can do with bamboo. However, they're not really a tree. But once you pack them up, you can use their wood just like any other wood in the game, including making its own unique boat. So unlike normal boats that we get, like the oak boats, a bamboo boat has its own like little bamboo floaty kind of look in. It has more of a raft look where it's kind of tied together. A very cool kind of boat, and mobs will sit smack dab on top rather than inside the boat. So that's another thing that's kind of cool about bamboo. Now, before you tell me that I missed a tree type, I wanted to bring up the azaleas. The azalea bushes come in flowered and unflowered versions. They are bushes, basically, but they do not grow on their own. They do have to be bone mealed. But every time you bone meal them, they are going to come up with this very unique kind of lumpy tree. They grow very fast, as you can tell. They're always pretty small, very lumpy kind of shape. They're always going to have a lot of flowers, no matter which of the bushes you grow. Like this one might seem to have a bit fewer flowers, but honestly, that is completely random. The one thing that I did not want to include it in all of the wood types is it does not, as of 1.21.6 and 7, its own log type. So it is going to be an oak tree. It's going to have the oak wood in it, just like our big oak trees. So I didn't really want to count it in the different wood types, but it is a tree. So we are going to count it as a tree type. And you can find these either by bone mealing moss, if you happen to stumble across a moss block, or you can find them growing wild in the lush caves. In this form above lush caves with this beautiful little rooted dirt below them, which can also be bone mealed, and you can shear off to get these hanging roots, which are pretty cool for a decorative block. And you can find these little azalea bushes and flowering azalea bushes there in the lush cave, just like you can find these above where the lush caves are. Before we go on to our nether trees, here is something to keep in mind that I did not mention as we went along. Now, the best way to see how leaf types can change is actually at a biome's edge in a real life setting in Minecraft. Now, this biome is really weird. You can see the giant mushroom here. We're actually in a dark oak forest. It's on the edge, probably continuing, oh, that's kind of cool, from over there. But you also see that we have a shattered savanna right here and a swamp biome, all kind of like right next to one another. So this oak tree itself actually has about 3 different biome color specifics. So we have a river biome where it's kind of like this lusher, like paler green. Then it goes into the dark oak biome. It's strange, but true. And you can kind of see that the leaves get even darker over on this edge. And then they get a little yellower over here. Then if we come up to this tree up here by the savanna, this has a very yellow look to the leaves over on this side. But on this side, where it comes over the ocean biome, it's more of this lusher green. Then if we come into the swamp biomes, you can see how very olive green the leaves change. Now, if you come into a jungle biome, you're going to see how vibrantly green the leaves are compared to over here in the dark oak forest where it's this darker green. And then if we make the transition between a jungle and a badlands, you really see the very distinct difference of the vibrantly green jungle all the way into the very brownish leaf texture of the badlands. However, there are a few leaf types that will not change in these biomes. So unlike a mangrove tree or an oak tree that will turn very brown, and this will also happen in the nether, by the way, Spruce leaves will continue to keep their very green leaf shape. You will also see that pale oak will continue to remain its gray leaf. Cherry trees will always remain pink, and azaleas will always remain green. So you can use this if you need greener looking leaves in a biome such as this. You can choose from some of the leaf types that don't change color. Or you can use it to your advantage and use it for some very interesting textures. As you notice that the birch trees don't turn all of that brown. But if you have like your jungle leaves, it's going to be very brown over here. But as we come over into this jungle, it's going to be very vibrantly green. So you can use all of that to your advantage too in the world. One last new biome to look at is the Pale Garden. And as you can see, it can be a very drastic difference in not only the leaf type, but the sky type here. If we take a look at your azalea leaves, they are still going to remain pretty vibrant. You're still going to have pretty vibrant birch trees. Cherry leaves are going to stay the same. Mangrove, however, is going to be this little bit more of a silvery look. So if we take one of these jungle leaves, it's going to also turn that more silvery look as well. So oak trees and some of the jungle are all going to have a grayer texture in this biome, whereas these will always stay gray no matter where, but you're going to get a little bit of a different color combination as you go. Our last two wood types come from the nether. Let's look at the crimson wood first. Crimson wood is actually grown from a crimson fungus. And unfortunately, there is a very specific thing you're going to have to plant this on in order to get it to grow. Crimson nylium. You're going to find these in crimson forests in the nether, and this has been a thing since 1.16 or so in Minecraft back in 2020. It has a solid door, so another one that has a very solid door. And then the trapdoors have a horizontal stripe to them. So unlike the Acacia that has up and down vertical stripes, this is the first one that has a horizontal stripe. It also has a very cool textured bark. The bark actually moves. Both of the nether woods have barks that have textures that actually move. It's very unique for these types of woods, but once you strip them, you get a very solid magenta color, as well as a very magenta looking plank design. Now, with our crimson fungus, you do need to get silk touch and get crimson nylium. There is a slight possibility you can get this without one, only if you happen to find an enderman who is carrying around one of these blocks, and then you kill it and it drops one of these. But otherwise, very difficult to get without silk touch. You will need to plant a mushroom, so you're going to have one of these crimson funguses on you. You can bone meal this nylium itself in order to get those. So you'll get these really cool crimson roots from time to time, and then once in a while, you will get one of these crimson funguses. Now, the funguses themselves, you can plant this way. They are never going to grow on their own, just like a single dark oak tree. But if you, oh gosh, that is the weirdest looking one I've ever seen. But if you bone meal them, it will grow the stem. There are some additional things that you can get off of a crimson tree, and let's see if we can grow another one a little bit bigger. There we go. A little better looking. You're going to get the stem. You're going to get this netherwort block. You are possibly going to get some weeping vines that can grow from the top down. And then once in a while, you'll get a shroom light that looks like this. And the shroom lights are harvestable, and they are a natural light source. This is one of the only natural light sources that you can find growing in the wild. There are some that spawn in, but this is very specific to these types of nether trees. Both of them do it. However, only the red one grows the vines from the tree itself, so you can actually harvest them and use them for decoration or for using in a climbing situation where you want to climb a vine, because they are climbable, which is kind of cool. So if we grow this one here, you can actually climb up into the tree and keep away from enemies while you're out in the woods. Now, one last wood type, and that is the warped fungus. The warped fungus has a very cyan wood color, very neon colors, has a very cool dark purpley texture that lends very well to this crimson color. And honestly, it actually has that same texture for the bark as this does. However, you're going to see this cyan color running through it versus this darker red color that runs through it. You have a very viney solid door, but a very viney looking clear trap door. And just like with the crimson fungus, you are going to need warped nylium. And again, just like the crimson, you might be able to find an enderman carrying one of these around, but otherwise you will need silk touch. The warped tree and the warped nylium, just like with our crimson, you can bone meal it. You will sometimes get these warped roots. More often than not, you're going to get the warped roots versus the mushrooms on this stuff. And then once in a while, you'll get these little nether sprouts, which are kind of like the baby ones. And then very, very rarely, you're going to get a vine growing from the bottom up. That looks like this guy right here, which is a twisting vine. Now, the twisting vines will not grow from these mushroomy things. Unfortunately, the warped fungus will not grow those, so you will have to bone meal this surface to get those. But if we grow one of these trees, you'll see that just like with the crimson, we get this cool warped wart block. We will sometimes get these shroom lights in here. And of course, you're going to get your stem. And there you have it, everyone. All of the 12 different wood types that are found in 1.21.6. The Chasetheskies update. Lots and lots of goodies to choose from. Lots and lots of amazing tree and wood types that you can actually find in the overworld. A few really cool ones that aren't really wood, but are kind of wood and function the same way. Now, one thing that I didn't mention is that the nether woods do not have a boat type because they do not actually in the nether. So they will not have a boat type. But every other type of tree all the way down the line will have a very specific boat that will go with it for that same color, which is really cool. Like I pointed out, the bamboo has a very distinctly different raft type look, which is pretty neat. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite wood type is. Is it one that you can get a ton of wood from, like a spruce tree or dark oak or a pale oak tree? Is it one of the other trees that are a little bit more random? Do you like to build with oak? Do you like to build with some of the nether trees? Let me know in the comments below. If you've gotten this far and haven't hit the subscribe button yet, please do so. I would love to hear from you in the comments. If you'd like to leave a like on this video, I would appreciate that as well. We also have subscriptions. If you are interested, I drop these videos at least a few days, sometimes as much as a week, ahead of time to my subscribers. So if you're really interested in the next video after watching this one, you might just have a video to watch next. You never know. And otherwise, if you like to chat with me on Discord, I run the Craftworks SMP Discord, and I would love to see you on over there. The link is in the doobly-doo below. Anyway, love you all very, very much. Give yourselves a hug from me, and I will see you very, very soon. Thank you so much for watching. See you later.